on question number 1, group accounts, the pre-populated spreadsheet. There are comments on pre-populated spreadsheet. Now, what are the comments? Let's read. Weaker answers attempted to revise the spreadsheet by editing the original draft entries. So now, if you can remember, I discussed this in our regular sessions, right? We discussed this in our regular practice sessions that there is a draft figure given. We are not required to touch that. We are not required to touch that. Leave it as it is. Now insert additional column for the adjustments and then insert one more column for the final. So let's suppose I'm giving you an example. Guys, don't write these points as of now if you are doing so, because I will be sharing this PDF file with you. I will be sharing this PDF file with you in the Telegram group. Okay. Now, so let's suppose draft SOFP is given. Draft SOFP is given and they have specified PPE as this much. They have specified investments as this much. Okay. These are draft numbers. So what I am trying to say is, don't touch these numbers. Leave it as it is. Leave it as it is. Rather, you add columns for each and every adjustments. For each and every adjustment, you add one column. Okay, you add one column for each and every adjustment, and then in the final column, you write the final figures. You write the final figures in the final column. Okay, so this is what is the approach that you have to follow. But what students does in the exam, let's see. They amend the original cells by inserting formula within the cells. So they change this, they change this cell itself, which is wrong. Okay, now they delete the cell and replace the original entries with alternative figures. So what they do, they delete it off and write the correct ones. Okay, wrong. They present a revised statement below the draft statement. Now what they do is they keep it as it is, but below this they again draw a draft SOFP, or they draw a final SOFP and again write each of these things, PPE, investments, and again, guys, not required. Don't redraft it. No, just beside that insert columns. Just beside that insert columns. Okay, separate column for each adjustment. Okay, now yes is asking separate column for each adjustment. Okay, now yes, I have written that point for you also. See, presenting adjustments in a clear manner avoids confusion and potential error. Posting them in separate columns helps to ensure the adjustments balance. I'll take a simple example. Let's suppose in the adjustments, ACCA has given a question that deferred consideration is not accounted for. Okay, so what will you do? First of all, you increase the adjustments, investments, and then you increase your deferred consideration. So now tell me, you will have a control. So for deferred consideration, this is what accounting I have done. But let's suppose in one column only, if you do all the adjustments, you won't have a control that if it's, let's suppose your SOFP is not tallying. Okay, so you will have to scratch your head, oh, where I have made a mistake. But if you have made a separate column for each adjustment, your life will become very easy. Plus the life of examiner will also become easy. And if you make the life of examiner easy, they will definitely give you marks. Is that clear? Yash? Okay, so don't amend the original cells, don't delete the original cells, don't present a revised statement. Such methods make it harder to link to the workings. The recommended approach is to leave the draft numbers alone. Leave the draft numbers as it is. Instead, make adjustment in subsequent columns. Now, if you make a separate column for each adjustment, also you will be able to see the dual impact. Okay, Dual impact you will be able to see, and if you have made any mistake, it will be easier for you to find out your mistake. Okay, it is recommended that students use labeled columns. Labeled columns means, let's suppose adjustment number 1 is deferred consideration. Now if you are writing deferred consideration, don't you think the examiner will get the confidence just by seeing your paper? Okay, this student has clearly identified this mistake, so using the label only, the examiner will identify, okay, the student is smart, he has identified this mistake. Okay, so labeled column. And I believe this is the process that we have followed in our classes also. Tell me yes or no, guys. This is the same process which we have followed in our classes also, right? Now, it is recommended the candidates use labeled columns to present adjustments to the draft console financial statements. It is much easier for markers to follow than a string of numbers. Again, yes, see here. If you just give a string of numbers entered into a cell, let's suppose we have to do the adjustments to PPE. We have to give fair value adjustment. Okay, we have to give fair value adjustment. We have to write excess depreciation. We have to do any other adjustments. So we are writing 3-4 adjustments in one column. Don't you think it will be difficult for the examiner to tie that which figure is coming from where? And if we give separate column for each adjustment, it will be easier for the examiner as well. It will be easier for the examiner as well. Plus, it will be easy for you also to trace your mistakes if you have done any. Okay, so always give separate column for each adjustment. Okay, now again, when adjusting the draft console FS, okay, be careful when using the plus and minus sign. I'll tell you where this mistake happens. This mistake will happen in these areas prima facie. I'll tell you. This mistake will happen if a question comes on console cash flow. Okay, and you have to adjust increase or decrease in working capital. Then this mistake will happen. Okay, or if a question comes on consolidated P&L and you have to adjust the cost of sales, then this mistake will happen. Are you agreeing with me? Tell me, guys. We have seen that in the classes, right? We have seen that in the classes. Right? So be careful in this part. Now, many times you will see, not only in question number 1, in the entire SBR paper, okay, you will see the question comes explain, question comes discuss, question comes explain with calculations, question comes critically assess. How does it make the difference? See, understand, I'll talk about it, I'll discuss. I'll say here, in generic points I have discussed, but I'll discuss it right now itself. Read the question carefully. What is the question asking? If the question is asking explain or discuss, then talk or clarify more into it. Okay? If the question is talking about explain or discuss, then we have to clarify more into it. If the question says explain and calculate or explain with calculations, okay, then candidates are expected to describe in more detail the calculations by relevant facts. Let's suppose in question number 1, if you know, in question number 1, question comes calculate goodwill and explain your workings. Calculate goodwill and explain your workings, right? Calculate goodwill and explain your workings. So now what we do? Definitely calculation part, we do it fine. But in explanation, what do we do? Many students, what they do is they repeat their workings in the explanation. No, you are not required to repeat your workings. You are required to explain your workings. Okay, why you have done this way. Okay, you are not required to repeat your workings. Okay, you are required to explain why you have done this. Why you have done this. You are required to explain. Okay, let's suppose you are required to explain the goodwill. So what you will do? You will say goodwill is the excess of investments over and above the net assets acquired, over and above the fair value of identifiable net assets acquired. This excess represents future economic benefits which the acquirer will receive. So this way you have to explain. Now you have to explain the investments. Okay. Now you have to explain the net assets. Now you have to explain the NCI. You have to say the NCI can be measured at fair value proportionate share. Here, since the fair value is given, we are considering it fair value. So explain it. Don't repeat your workings. Rather explain your workings. Okay. Is this clear, everyone?